Hello and welcome to Lightroom Bite Size. Now wouldn't it be great if you could take a big brush and you could paint the sky or paint the trees? How about a big wooden puppet? Now hold that thought. Now we can do all of those things inside of Lightroom using a very special brush, and I'm going to show you how to use it today. Stay tuned for the big wooden puppet. Yes, you're looking at a giant puppet walking through the streets of Liverpool. Now I remember capturing this shot and I took my time and waited for the puppeteers and for the general public to be out of shot, because there was quite a lot of people there that day. It was, running to the thousands. But anyway, I waited and I got this shot and I was so pleased I hung on for it. Now I'm not going to lie, I've already done the basic edits because you know how to do that. If you've watched any of my previous videos, I've just gone through these basic adjustments here. And what I really want to show you, however, is this guy up here, which is the adjustment brush. Now with the adjustment brush, I can make local edits. Now what do I mean by that? Well, in the basic palette, we make a general overall fix of exposure, colors, saturation, clarity, or whatever it is. Now with the adjustment brush, we can be more specific. So for instance, I can make changes to the puppet's dress or to the colour of the skin. Now don't laugh, I know it's not skin, it's wood, but I'm going to call it skin because it just makes me smile. And and I'll do some other changes just to enhance colours and make that puppet pop a little bit out of the shot. Now that's the plan. So let's expand the adjustment brush palette and see what we've got. So if you look down here, we've got all the same sort of adjustment tools that we have in the basic palette, but like I say, we can make local adjustments by brushing in with the adjustment brush. So before I start brushing any adjustments in, let me just explain a few things first. If you take a look on here, that exposure on a previous edit, I've obviously set it to 3.22, and these could be, when you open up the adjustment brush, they could be scattered, and it's kind of like what was left over from a previous edit. And to reset that is really simple. Just double click on the word effect just here and they will all return to 0, and that's what you want. And then obviously we'll start adjusting these as we go along. Down at the bottom we have our brush controls, and we can make the brush size bigger or smaller. We can make the edge nice and soft with the feather. We can change the flow and change the density. We also have two brushes. So if we look here, I've got a large brush, as you can see, and then I've got a small brush. So you've got a choice of two brush sizes, and that's quite good because it's like programming in your own brush sizes if you like. And then we've also got arrays, because as we sort of make an edit, we might spill out into an area that we don't perhaps want to include in the edit, and therefore we can use the arrays to just simply erase where we've kind of included a part that we didn't want to edit. Okay, that was a bit long-winded, but I think you understand. So I can also use the square bracket keys to make the brush bigger or smaller, just as I'm doing there. And I've got a mouse. Of course I've got a mouse. I've got an Apple Mac, which has a magic mouse, and if I just scroll up and down in the center of the mouse, I can change the brush size that way too. One more thing to consider is the auto mask. Now the auto mask is fantastic because when it's switched on, just by simply checking the box, when I paint in on the photograph, it will find the edges. So I don't know if you ever did this when you were young. I'm sure you did. You had a colouring book and you used to colour in between the lines. It's exactly the same thing. Lightroom, if you have this box checked, it kind of magically knows where the edge of where you are colouring, as long as there's a lot of contrast and there's a lot of difference between, you know, one and the other. It will do a great job of keeping you inside and not spilling out. Now, to do that, if you look at the brush head at the moment, it's got a little plus symbol right in the center of the brush, and I've got to make sure that I keep that inside of wherever I want to make the changes. So let's zoom in a bit then, and I will show you exactly what I mean. So, two ways of doing this. Let me just increase the exposure just to be a bit silly and start painting in. Now look, it's going to find the edge. It's finding the edge, and it's making sure that it's not spilling onto the outside of the dress. Now, of course, I don't want the dress to look like that, but that was just to give you an idea. So you can watch in real time that the edits that you're making. Each time you create a new edit, it will put this little pin here, and if I mouse over that little pin, it will show in red the masked oh, it's hard for me to say that. It shows you in red the masked area, so you know exactly where you've painted. Now, to remove that edit that I've made, I just hit the backspace and it disappears. Now I'm going to put that back to 0 and show you the other way, the method I like to use, and I'm just going to press the letter O on the keyboard, and I'm going to start painting, and there you go. And I'm going to paint. I'm making no adjustments at the moment. I'm just painting the puppet's dress. So I'm going to disappear for a while because I'm sure you don't want to watch me painting the dress, and I'll be back shortly. So sometime later we have a painted dress. Now I'm going to zoom in just to recap on what I've done there. So I've painted the dress, and as you can see, I've been really careful, and I've not managed to go over the edge. Now that's not true because I went over the edge many times, but I used the erase tool. So let's just have a little recap on that then. So I have the brush selected. You can see the brush size here. Now watch, if I go over the outside, I don't want that, obviously. So I'm going to switch to the erase brush. I usually take the feather off, to be honest, because I want a hard edge. And I would just erase the area I've just painted by mistake. And this is why I didn't want you to watch me doing it, because it takes time. It's worth doing though, isn't it? Any job that's worth doing well, it's worth spending a bit of time on, isn't it? So that's how you'd use the the paint in, paint out. And again, just to recap, if I just make the brush a little bit bigger, and I've always to erase this. Now obviously I want this in. So just to show you the back to brush A, make sure the auto mask's on, and just to show you that it will just paint right up to the edge of the line. So it's quite clever, isn't it? As I can see, I've missed a bit there. Generally when I'm filling in, it's only around the edges that I leave the auto mask switched on. Anywhere else you can switch the auto mask on, because what happens is, especially in this dress anyway, the creases, Lightroom will think that the creases are edges. So I basically just go around the edge and then turn the auto mask off and then fill in the rest. So that's how I did that. Now at the moment we've just got a red mask. Now what I'm going to do now is press the letter O on the keyboard, and that will disappear. Now it's still selected. There's the little pin just here. So it's still selected, but of course I haven't changed anything yet. So what am I going to do with the dress? Well, I think it needs to be saturated a bit more. Maybe we should try that. Let's increase the colour so it's got a nice greeny colour there. I'm going to lift some of the shadows up perhaps, just to make that stand out a little bit more. Maybe not that much, probably around about there. That looks rather good, doesn't it? And what else can I do? Yeah, that looks okay. I could, in fact, change the colour of the dress by using the temperature slider. And let's just have a little look what that looks like. You can be as dramatic as you like. But I am just going to maybe just take it towards the blue slightly. Yeah, and that looks great. Now we can see a before and after with this little toggle switch just here. So that's what it looked like. And with the adjustments, that's what it looks like now. So I'm going to leave it as that. I kind of like that. Now you can change it to so many different ways and colours, and it's infinite, isn't it? But for now, I kind of like that. Now it's non-destructive, so I can come back to it later and perhaps have another go. Maybe it's a bit too saturated, I don't know. But I can always come back to it. The main thing is it's now masked, and I've got the ability to be able to go in and change that later on. So now it's time to adjust the puppet's skin colour. Now it's not skin, it's wood, isn't it? But I'm going to call it skin. And yeah, so click on new. If these are not reset to 0, just double click on the effect and that should reset them. And now I'm going to use my preferred method. So I'm going to click on the letter O. I'm going to make the brush a bit smaller. I'm going to make sure auto mask is switched on, and I'm going to start painting just here. And changing the brush size as you do it. No, really, I should zoom in, I suppose, and do an accurate job. But just for speed, I'm just going to trust the auto mask, and hopefully it doesn't go too much over the edge. Now if it does, I can zoom in and have a little look, I suppose. But for me, for the purpose of this tutorial, that should do actually. And just get the thumb area there. Okay, it doesn't look too bad, does it? Now again, I would zoom in and make a better job of that, but that's okay. And then obviously just do the legs here as well. And as I say, that auto mask isn't doing too bad a job, is it? I don't know what it's done there though. So I'm just going to erase some of that there. So I don't want that. Okay, back to the brush and possibly just a little bit more there, because what I want to do is brighten this up. Okay, so that's now selected. And as I say, I'll probably zoom in and maybe erase somewhere it's crossed over the edge, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I won't do that. I'm going to click on the letter O. That just turns the mask off or makes it not visible. Obviously, if I just mouse over, we're still active. Okay, and then what am I going to do with this then? Well, let me just say I am going to take it more towards the yellow. So up to say about 20, yeah, roughly about there. And maybe just lift the shadows slightly as well. Maybe up to about, say, there. Okay, and that looks a lot better, doesn't it? Now I'm going to zoom in and do the face as well. So make sure I'm on brush A. Yeah, the feather's fine. Auto mask. And I'm just going to go in and paint the face as well. And I might speed this part up because, again, I'm sure you don't want to watch me do this. And there you have it. So that's the face done as well. Now if I just toggle on and off what I've done so far, there's a big difference, isn't it? Now perhaps I would just drop the yellow slightly. It might just be a bit too yellow. That looks a bit better, doesn't it? Obviously don't want it skin colour. But that looks great. The next thing I'm going to do is the goggles and the actual helmet as well. And just make them pop out a little bit more. So let me just zoom in a bit then. And what I'm going to do is I want to sort of bring out the metallic effect around here. So if you can imagine that was made of brass, for instance. So I need to click on New in the Adjustment Brush palette, and then go to my trusty letter O on the keyboard. Make sure Auto Mask is switched on again, and start painting in around here. Okay, so that's that done. Press the letter O, and we're still active, as I say, because there's the pin, and if a mouse over there you can see the areas that I've painted. Now I want to take that to a more yellow colour, so let's take it up to around about, say, there, and that looks great straight away, doesn't it? I may increase the saturation a tiny amount. Yeah, and that looks fine, doesn't it? So toggle on and off. So that's the goggles done. So the next thing I'd do then is the actual leather helmet, and again I'm going to click on New and press the letter O. Make sure Auto Mask is switched on, exactly the same as what I've done previously. Make the brush a bit bigger and then start painting the helmet. And I can now, once it's been masked, I can now switch off the letter O. Switch off the letter O, you know what I mean. Turn the mask off by pressing the letter O. And then I'm going to adjust the colours again. So let's go up, put some yellow in, maybe around about there. And this time put some red in, probably to about there. And that looks fine to me. Now looking at the helmet, I can see that I missed this strap here, so I can quickly just go in and paint that, and you know, I don't need to switch on the mask to see where I'm painting, and Auto Mask has done a great job there, hasn't it too? So let's just zoom out and take a look at that. Now if I press the letter H, the little pins disappear, so I can get a really clear image of how well it looks. So that's the shortcut. You know, you can see all the pins we've added. One for the dress, one for the skin, one for the goggles, and one for the helmet. And as you can see, if it's black, it means it's active. That's the active one. So, you know, obviously if I shove the exposure right up, which would be rather silly, just double click to get it back to 0. Now I'm going to click on Done, and I'm going to take a look at before and after. Now bear in mind, I did do some basic edits before I started to show you what the adjustment brush does. So let's have a look at a before and after. That is the way it came in from the camera. So with basic edits and the adjustment brush, it's achieved this type of look. Now what I love is that I can go back to the adjustment brush, click on any of these nodes, pins, whatever you want to call them. That to me might be a little bit too bright, so I can take that back down a little bit, because I think it was a little bit too bright. And the dress, let's click on the dress, and I might think there's too much saturation in it, so I can reduce that saturation or change the color or whatever I want, because as I say, it's non-destructive. But I'm going to say that's fine and click on Done. I chose this image because of the sort of complexity of picking those items, especially, you know, around the goggles and the helmet. But I'm going to just show you just a recap. Let's just have a look at the sky and see what you can do with the sky. So again, just clicking on the adjustment brush, making sure auto mask is selected, make sure we're on new and everything's set to 0. Come across into the image and look how easy it is when you start painting big areas. Oh, look, nothing's happened. That's because I needed to switch on the letter O. I'm glad I did that then, because it just, you know, it's something that you might stumble into by accident. Now look how wonderfully well it's found the edges of the building. It is amazing. And again, if I keep that center cross sign and make sure it doesn't ever venture onto the building and just stays in the sky, I've quickly got the sky selected. Now switch off the mask. Now I shouldn't say that because the mask is still on. Look, I just made it invisible. Okay, so it's invisible. What am I going to do? Well, I'm just going to change the color of the sky slightly. I'm just going to drop the exposure just to darken it a touch, and then I'm going to just drag it towards the green. I just want to make that a bit more of a, almost to match the dress, if you like, rather than it being that sort of vibrant blue. It's kind of a more tealy aqua colour. And there you go. And that's how easy it was to do that. So you may find yourself that you know, if you're a landscape photographer, for instance, that it's just easy for you to just separate the sky or separate a body of water or whatever it's going to be, and just basically brush in the exposure, colour changes, or whatever you want. You just have fun, you know, using that brush. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please put a little thumbs up and consider subscribing. I always get stuck on that word, consider subscribing, if you haven't already done so. And you take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next upload. Bye for now.
Take a photograph and make the moment last.